very briefly, I'd like to read you a small part. I don't usually read at these things, but a small part of the statement from the Council of Canadians. The Council of Canadians calls on the Canadian government to denounce the U.S. attack on Venezuela and its ongoing violations of Venezuelan sovereignty and international law. Canada must cease all collaboration with U.S. operations in the Caribbean, which clearly violate international law. But we cannot stop there. No sooner had President Maduro been abducted than Trump turned to insulting threats, issuing threats against Mexico, Cuba, and Colombia, and insisting that Greenland must be annexed by military force if necessary. The Trump administration's explicit stated aim is the domination over the whole Western Empire and international waters with no regard for international law or national sovereignty. So the reason we need to address the guy that's half a block down, whose office is half a block down here, is because Canada is not only doing enough, Canada is actively participating, supporting and is actively complicit with these violations of international law. As educators, some of us are educators, we know that a good example is a good way to learn, and there's a good example not that far away, just a little bit to the south, within Cuzma. Our Cuzma partner, President Sheinbaum of Mexico, not only pointed out the obvious, that this is the Trump's acts are a violation of international law. When they cut off the oil to Cuba, Mexico, also an oil producer, said, we will send oil to Cuba. So this is not just words, this is concrete solidarity. It's concrete solidarity that Mexicans, even if they end up paying a little bit more at the pump for their own oil, they understand, because not that long ago at the time of the COVID crisis, when Mexican doctors and the Mexican healthcare system was not able to provide for their people, they saw Cuban doctors and Cuban vaccines that they needed. So President Sheinbaum and the Mexican people understand that solidarity is indivisible from Mexico to Cuba to Palestine. Behind the Canadian government and motivating the Canadian government are not people like you and me. I remember, as I was a little bit younger at the time, but I remember the coup in Chile. It was one of the first political economic acts I did. I withdrew my bank account. My whole family went to the local Bank of Nova Scotia, and we withdrew our accounts because the Bank of Nova Scotia was rushing to invest in Pinochet's Chile. I remember because I was a little bit young at the time, and the Bank of Nova Scotia bank book, you actually had a physical bank book, not a card back then, was pretty. It had like autumn leaves on it. It was rather attractive, and I was swapping it for a very drab-looking bank book from the province of Ontario Savings Office, and I felt a little bit regretful. But then we all got this letter from the bank manager. The local branch manager actually wrote to us and said, we can't possibly withdraw investments from Chile, because if we start paying attention to human rights, there would be no place left to invest in. Some things don't change, friends. The Bank of Nova Scotia is still among the corporations in this country who are rubbing their greedy corporate hands and licking their chops at the prospect of despoiling the resources of Venezuela. But it doesn't stop there. So if you have an account with the Bank of Nova Scotia, think about moving to a credit union. All the chartered banks are bad. Go to a credit union. But it doesn't stop there, because the Bank of Nova Scotia is also among the major investors in Elbit Systems, the company in Israel that builds drones to terrorize and kill Palestinian people, who is also a customer of the Canadian military. The Canadian military, is a customer of Elbit Systems. So we need to end Canadian complicity in the arms trade, but also in the investments in these places. One other a corporation which is here and everywhere, from the Amazon to the Arctic, Chevron Oil has been despoiling and pillaging indigenous lands for fossil fuels. Chevron is also among the companies that's racing to get their share of the spoils in Venezuela. Chevron is also the company that is stealing undersea fossil fuel resources from the Palestinian waters off Gaza. So from the Sea of Gaza to the Arctic, to the Amazon, to Venezuela, Chevron Oil Chevron Resources is one of the culprits. They're active in this country, and that's something that we can do about here in Canada. Because Prime Minister Mark Carney, and Foreign Minister Anand probably don't have a sense of history, I'd like to remind them by adapting a small poem and leave us on that thought. I'm sure they know Reverend Nirmar's poem, so I'll adapt it here and say, first they came for Venezuelans, but I wasn't a Latin American, so I didn't say anything. That's carnage. Then they came for Greenland, and we weren't Europeans, and we didn't say anything. They came for migrants in Minneapolis and across the states, and we weren't migrants, at least not there, and we didn't do anything. I think you know how the poem ends, Prime Minister Carney, and also Minister Anand, and also MP Fragiscatos. We know how that goes. If we don't stand up now, it doesn't take a lot of imagination, because there's already talk of how they view Canadian sovereignty. So either we stand up for sovereignty and international law, we stand with the states and the leaders like Sheinbaum in Mexico, who are taking a principled position. There's a clear path here. It's either solidarity and resistance, or we all go down individually. So with that, maybe we can end with Meg's chant. Where'd Meg go? Meg's here someplace, yes. United States is a rogue state. The United States is a rogue state. The United States is a rogue state.